Today, we're deciding to dive a little bit into our realm of things that we currently do, which is quality assurance. And the fun, we hear this a lot in our realm, but so a lot of people outside of it don't really understand, is they confuse the quality control with quality assurance. And the difference between it is quality control is exactly as it sounds like we're ensuring control of our product by eliminating defects and inspecting them to make sure that they're made right, or the services that we're providing is actually what it's supposed to be doing. That's quality control. Quality assurance is kind of like the overall of it all, where control is just a little piece of the pie for quality assurance. There's like so much stuff that goes behind quality assurance itself. And a lot of it has to do with process control, process evaluations, elimination of variance, which is like a key thing.
Yep.
And
risk mitigation, risk identification and mitigation.
Yes.
Contract requirements.
Yes, most definitely.
That's a big one that I've been dealing with a lot lately is drilling down through contracts and it goes both ways, right? You're ensuring that your own outfit and your own team or program are abiding by the contract, but it goes the other way too, right? Your customers come over and say, "We'd like to see this now," and you're like, "Well, we'd like a lot of things around here, but let me go and see what the contract says." You start reading down through, and sometimes you got to go back to the customer and go, "Hey, look, that's not written in the contract anywhere. We can help you out and do this, but if you want any more than that, we're going to need an addendum to the contract, and you're going to throw us some more dollar bills." You know what I mean?
Right. And then that happens like what MVP was saying. And when we say contracts, we're talking about all sorts of things. It can be for aviation. It can be for coffee shop rentals. It can be for party supplies. It can be all sorts of things. Whenever you sign up for a service or sign up for a product, you're entering into air quotes a contract. And most times it's that super long thing that everyone just kind of scrolls through and checks the box at the end and clicks accept. But for today, so we're diving into this article where it's talking about the system of profound knowledge. This was made by a certain engineer named William Edwards Deming, who was instrumental in helping us create or progress a bunch of quality assurance tools that we use today. And with this system of profound knowledge, a lot of stuff stuck out to us, and we were kind of having this funny conversation offline before the episode started. And some of the stuff that it mentions in this profound knowledge or theory of profound knowledge is some of the things that you can apply, not just to quality assurance as a job, but just everywhere in general. And some of the things it talks about is like an appreciation for a system. That's not just the system that you're currently in. This is kind of like anything and everything that you do can and could be, or can and should be embodied into some form of a system, whether it be like control of a process, whether it be like a normalization of a routine, right? Like meal prepping and getting ready for working out and stuff like that, or you having a stress management routine. That's a type of system. Knowledge of variance, the theory of knowledge itself, and psychology. And so with understanding a system of knowledge, you run into things where, like, when people have ideas that they found a way into how they do things, and you really hear about the importance of understanding how people think and act, and based on what they believe in and what they know to be true. And this right here is the core of the theory of knowledge. And one of the biggest things that we laugh the hardest about in regards to this theory of knowledge is confirmation bias.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
That's a huge one for us. So confirmation bias is like the tendency to latch onto evidence that supports your belief and ignore evidence that undermines those said beliefs, right? In order to
and I think we can all agree that even, this is a big problem outside of even our workspace, right? It could even be it can even be in your personal life. Think about Thanksgiving meals and how many fights have started around the dinner table because of differencing opinions and confirmation bias. It's crazy.
Yes. And we see this a lot, especially in the aviation realm, where you see individuals who are very adamant about pushing a certain idea or program or movement or agenda. And they're so adamant to the fact that they're unwilling to hear anything other than yes or go or push forward or whatever the case may be, where it just supports their idea. Like, say an individual says, hey, I want to fly 5 flights on a Saturday, and there's only one working plane in the entire freaking hangar. And so here comes a person, say a mechanic, that goes, no, we can't do 5 flights. We only have one plane. And their brains tune out to the number that there's only one plane. They'll just say like, well, make 4 happen. How?
Yeah, with what? With what? With what parts? You know?
Or with what support, right? Because especially when you do certain organizations or certain places, to do certain events on a weekend requires us a wide variety of support, and some places just don't offer that on a weekend.
Speaking for my own organization, we run into this a lot even within the last 24 hours of this episode recording here. Hey, we got work to do. Okay, so everybody's going to work the weekend. Well, why? Well, because we got flights. Well, what do you mean we got flights? Yeah, we got flights. I'm like, okay, well, when did those pop in there? Like, you can start drilling back down, and like everybody sat around a room with this confirmation bias and said, fly, 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 fly. They sound like those seagulls from Finding Nemo. And they're just like pinging there. It's called the echo chamber, right? And you just hear your own voice and the voices of others resounding your own thoughts coming back, and you don't hear anything different. Where then you got someone like Six Head, a mechanic, going, hey, real quick, here's some issues that might prevent that. And they said, no, everybody's working. We'll be fine. But going with the organizations that don't provide all the support. So I'm like, okay, well, do we have engineering on the hook? Did we just say everybody's working the weekend? All right, well, I'm just asking the question because we've been here before. Sure enough, what do I get? I get a call halfway through the day that says, yeah, we're going to have to just send everybody home. Turns out we don't have any engineering support.
Fancy that.
Well, I should have bet on black. You know what I mean? Like,
you don't say.
You don't say. Boy, if only somebody had asked this question previously. Oh, wait, they did. Yeah, that's kind of the stuff. But they only hear what they want. Weekend. Everybody in this room right here has all said we're working the weekends. Okay, well, what about the ones who don't work in this room? Bitch, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, exactly. And another example, right? Like, say, like, picture like an event at your workplace, right? Where a certain individual of a particular level of influence says something, and it's one of those suggestive kind of things where if you don't buy in on it, then you're not with the team kind of thing. And when you don't, because of your experience of it all and then the history of all how it's going, you say, no, that's not gonna happen, or that's not a great idea. And then all of a sudden you're the black sheep in the room, like,
yeah, how dare you tell the director that their idea has some flaws in it,
right? Like, I am infallible and you will acknowledge this. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah. I want to fly an F-18. Well, sir, this unit, we only operate C-17s. Did you not hear what I wanted? I want an F-18. Just real quick, though, we don't have those here. We'll make it happen.
Right.
I don't have that kind of authority. You know what I mean? Like,
exactly. Like, I want my Cessna to climb 10,000 feet in under 2 seconds. Like, say what now?
Yeah, I don't have that ability.
This is a Cessna, right? You understand what this is, right? It's not a jet plane. I said I wanted to happen. Fine. or
But there you go, people jumping through, everybody, oh, yes, sir, we can make that do. There goes that confirmation, right? That confirmation bias.
absolutely.
Well, everybody else around here told me I could. Yeah, and everybody else is trying to kiss your ass so they can move up.
Yeah.
And I get it, right? I get it. I'm sure I've been guilty of it at some point too, and probably will be at some point in the future. I'm human too.
Yeah.
But there sometimes you just got to be that person that says, yeah, that's cool. We can probably do that if these other things are done. Have these other things been done? Oh no, we didn't even think about that. Cool. Well, we're going to need those 5 things done before we can do this.
Yes. And that also reminds me of this one video that we posted on Instagram where it's talking about like, do you want it fixed or do you want it running? It's like, well, what are you talking about? I want it fixed, running, and safe. Like, whoa.
And safe?
That's the holy trinity of maintenance right there. Like, fixed, running, and safe. And let me tell you right now, like, safe is not on the table.
Yeah. For this to fly, safety is not one of the concerns right now. If you want it done safe, then the maintenance will be done, appropriately.
Yeah, and it's going to be down for about 6 months till we get all the parts and all the funding to get it rolling. And yeah, so that kind of leads me into the predictions and learning, right? To the extent possible, it's best to gather evidence based on the experiments to support your theories. Holy shit. Holy shit, right? The model typically used for this kind of theory is the plan, do, check, act cycle, or sometimes called the plan, do, study, act cycle. And it's as rudimentary and empirical as it sounds. Like, you plan something, you plan it all out with all the requirements and all the stuff that you need to do and all the step-by-steps. You do it according to said plan, because how many people, like, especially with risk management sheets, right? Like they throw stuff on the board, they make it sound nice, they make it go from red to green or red to yellow or whatever the hell. They give it some numbers to make it sound cool. And so you really think like they mapped out this process, and then when they go do it, they do something completely different from what they just did. And then
yeah, so the PDSA, I'm just going to say the PDSA just because that would be easier than saying the full thing. But
right.
It's a cyclical 4-stage improvement process. Plan, do, study, act. It promotes continual improvement. So like Six was just saying, risk-based planning. But from my experience, you have to have a program and people that actually care about risk to get involved in the program. And I can tell you for me, I run the risk program for us, but like I've also been laughed at for bringing up stuff like, hey, I noticed we're having this issue out here. Do we have a risk involved? Oh, well, the gas prices keep increasing and my pay hasn't increased. So do I need to put a risk for that? MVP? Well, no, I'm just asking here, like just trying to help the program. Maybe there's something going on that we,
yeah.
But laughed out of there. I'm like, nobody gives a shit about that here. And we're like, you probably should, but hey, I don't see everything because I'm only at this level. That's why I'm walking around asking, these individuals what they see and if there's anything that's looming in the distance.
Absolutely.
So the plan stage includes gathering data on the current situation and past history. The do stage is actually an experiment stage where possible improvements are tested. The study stage, results of those experiments are studied. And then the act stage is usually adopt improvements if the experiment found successful methods. So if you're, I think of it like like if you've ever been involved in a corrective action, right? Or a car, so to speak. You go through, you identify, okay, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to plan to do this. Okay. Now we're going to do those things. We're going to implement those. That's your, CAI, your implementation stage. So you go through and you adopt those things. Then after that, you have, okay, those are done. Let's do the VCA or the study stage. The VCA is the verification of the corrective action. So what they said they did is actually working.
Yes.
Hey, that did work. Cool. So now the adopt or stage is now, okay, hey, what do we do? Well, we did these things and we've actually had a positive trend. We've driven down negative tools from 50%, loss to find rate down to a 20, down to 25% or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, fantastic. So, obviously what we said we're going to do is working. Now let's change the processes to incorporate those new steps.
Right. And a lot of this sounds like some Six Sigma stuff, and it kind of is. And they all kind of,
it is actually. Yeah, you're very right on that.
They work hand in hand, and it sounds very mathy, very, very mathematical, and it is. But again, like this sort of stuff, like if you were to apply this to pretty much everything else, you'd be amazed at just how much of your life it can be broken down into a step by step. Some of it's kind of redundant, it's kind of overkill, but it works. And then what you get from this cycle is you can find out if you've been overly optimistic in your assumptions or you've been overly optimistic in your actions to adjust. You can find out if you've been effective at all in your predictions or your corrective actions. Then you would see right away, you'd be able to document the impact of what you did, and often as you predicted projects during the test, right? So like if you predicted that XYZ is going to happen and it did, hey, that means that you now have an understanding of how this is going to happen, and then what sort of trends or conditions can affect those things, and what will make it change, or what will make it do what you want it to do, and then what you can have it to improve. And then
this is sorry to cut you off. So this is sort of like maybe some of you are more familiar with this, a preventative action plan.
Yes.
This is similar to that. So whereas like a car would be something that Six and I would find and we'd issue to the affected party and say, hey, look, we found a flaw within your process. You need to rectify it. This PDSA or what did I just say? Jesus, getting old here.
The preventative
action plan. Holy cow. Sorry, everybody. The preventative action plan is where it's a tool to be used for departments or individuals to self-identify problems. So, okay, I have this preventative action plan. Okay, let's say I'm a maintainer out there, and I'm like, oh man, I found, we're doing this wrong. We're servicing the Hydra system wrong, and if we continue to do it this way, we run the risk of over pressurization due to the maintenance manual not being thorough enough and our own training being lacking, not covering this particular piece of equipment we have. It's just very general in the training. Okay, so I identified that, so I start my PAP. Then let's say Six and I come along as QA, and we're like, hey, we just noticed this. You guys you're on the risk of over pressurizing the Hydra system for doing this. So we're going to issue a car. At that point, you can go, hey, look, we're already tracking that. Here's my preventative action plan. Oh, fantastic. You guys have already identified the issue and you're working towards goals. Let me review that. Cool. And then we as QA can get involved and say, hey, yeah. And also don't forget this aspect. So we can help you improve your preventative action plan and get it, and drive it to resolution. Mm-hmm. And look, you identified something, you found a flaw, you're working resolutions on it, and there was no car. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not to say a preventative action plan or a PDSA would prevent a car ever again. Because, if I find it, well, that's wrong. If you mm-hmm. find it, then great. Thank you for like actually reviewing your stuff, Mm-hmm. But that's another. The PAPs, and this PDSA is another way to kind of tie in. The cars and the PAPs are another way to tie in with this PDSA. Sorry
Yes.
to hijack the conversation here.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. And again, with preventative action plans, like MVP was saying, it's not going to prevent everything, but the fact is you have identified it, and now you understand like there's ways for you to mitigate those high risk items from happening, right? If you just flat willy nilly just did it on your own accord, and whatever happens, that's when you can run into some real trouble. You'll see certifications get revoked. You see licenses get cut up. You see livelihoods get crushed. And you might actually see some actual lives get lost. So what's the alternative? Getting your ass chewed, or having to explain your process, or having to send someone to the ER because he had his arm chopped off or something like that?
Yeah. Now, it should be said, be careful when doing these PDSAs or your PAPs or your cars. You run the risk of confirmation bias if you don't get additional parties involved, right? If you don't get that third party entity in there, because if you get everybody from your same shop in there and they're going to go, I think we should do this fix, and everybody's going, yeah, that sounds good. Let's all do that. Okay, hey, look, man, we finished up this PDSA or this car in record time, and then okay, well, let's review it. Well, what about this? Oh, we didn't think about that. Okay, well, what about this? And we didn't think about that either. What about that? Yeah, start over, right? So you can also run the risk of those PDSAs being ineffective if you don't get additional viewpoints and thoughts and information, because you run that confirmation bias risk at that point.
Absolutely. And that kind of ties into this next part of the Zarco, which is called variation, right? People believe that there is much less variation in a system and a process than there is. This underestimation of variation causes people to believe normal variation is not normal, meaning like things change, things happen, like the environment changes, people change, they didn't get enough sleep last night or something like that. And you see any sort of variation because everyone likes to have that optimal line of performance, and anything outside of that is just wrong, which honestly, variation is normal. It's going to happen. It's when
as your program, as your organization grows, it will vary in its operation, and you have to adapt to that. That's why people are like, well, we just going back tying in with the PDSA side now. Well, we just had this, you guys just identified this problem last year and we updated our document to do that. Now you're telling us it's not good again? Well, no, because in that year that we've reviewed that process, you acquired an additional duties for your shop. Okay, last year you weren't tracking consumables, and now you are. Well, that's obviously going to be a change. That's a variable that changed, and you have to be able to adapt with it. But you also didn't do your PDSA or your PAP and say, okay, we've acquired this, make sure our processes cover this, right? Nope, you just let it sit back and let Six and I come find it. Again, sorry to hijack the conversation there, Six, but
no, again, you're absolutely right. And as MVP was saying, like everyone wants that optimal line performance. We all do. We all want to be as close to zero defects as possible, but variations happen, and it's going to happen. The problem is when it starts to spike up or down, like up being bad, down being good, and like, okay, hold on, what happened here, right? It starts to change your optimal line. And as MVP has alluded to, like if you take on programs, or you lose programs, or you take on extra duties, or you add shall must do into your procedures, that changes a lot. And a sensible strategy to this is to examine the process and the environment in which a person works first, rather than just blame the person and call that a special cause. How many times have you guys seen that happen, right? The environment you're working in is fucking terrible, or the equipment you're using to work with is terrible, or both. And instead of the people that be the process owners or the bean counters or whoever it is that owns that, instead of seeing it as, hey, we have a procedure issue, we have an equipment issue, we have an environment issue, they just see, oh, it's a personal operation error. Like the person's responsible because the equipment's there, the environment's there, we can't control any of those things, so it has to be the person operating. Seen that happen way too many fucking times where like, oh, the cause is the person just doesn't know. Like, that's not the person's fault unless they're blatant about it. Like, but I now we're starting to talk into criminal actions.
I mean, I think you and I have had this conversation offline, but I know for like our own organization, we kind of put in the rule that people can't be root cause, right?
Yes.
So as you're going through your PDSA here or your PAP or whatever, people can't be root cause. Now, again, there are caveats where the process was solid and this person just willfully and knowingly disregarded the process. Yeah, I know what it says and I didn't want to do that. So I did this and it blew up in my face. Well, then we got negligence we're talking about, Still, It's not really the person. It's just negligence. That's the root cause.
Yeah.
You don't say 6:06 o'clock, decided not to, read the process, understood it, has identified that he knows what it states, and has also identified that he chose not to do that because he didn't feel like walking over 6 hangers down to do what he needed to do. And because of that, this happened, failure to follow process. That's root cause, not 6 sucks. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. That's a what do they call those? That's an
outlier,
contributing factor that he sucks, but that's not. He just failed to follow the process.
I suck. Right. And it's and again, it's very rare for a person to be a root cause, like a single one track person, unless it's like criminally flagrant, like this person willfully intended and planned to sabotage XYZ, or this person just willfully did not give a fuck and did XYZ. Again, that goes into negligence and that goes into fraud, waste, and abuse. But but still, like stuff like that that's not a root cause in of itself. There's more to it. You can dig down, and there's a whole process for that too, like the 5 whys or some fishbone diagram or whatever scale you're trying to use. This is going way into the statistical process control of our jobs, which honestly, it's kind of it hurts my brain just doing it. But yeah, it goes into that variation again. Like, and things are gonna happen, and you just gotta account for them when and how they're gonna happen. And sometimes the variations are so small, like it's almost insignificant. So like, yeah, it happened, but big deal. Right, like so and so wore a red bracelet today instead of a blue one, or so and so reflective vest is orange instead of yellow. So the fuck what, right? But did the job get done as it intended within tolerance or within specification? Yes. Moving on.
Yeah,
and this kind of goes into the psychology and knowledge piece of this theory cycle. Is, as stated before, all these components, they're very interrelated, both the knowledge base, the variation, conspiracy, confirmation bias, and knowledge. They're all very interrelated and they all work together hand in hand. And the way we evaluate an idea that is not based on cold logic, and we may like to believe that it is, if we hear an idea from someone we don't like, and then 2 days later we hear the exact same idea from somebody who we respect or we venerate, we react very differently to these. And MVP and I can attest to this on so many freaking levels, because there are times when we ourselves have pitched ideas, or we have ourselves have pitched facts, cold, hard facts, and everyone's just deaf, flat out deaf to the notion, like, how dare you challenge my infallible nature? But as soon as someone else says the exact same thing, almost verbatim, but because it's someone that they like, that's someone within their circle, it's someone who they themselves respect, they embrace it with open arms. Like, oh, that's a fantastic idea. That's great. Well, let's implement this now. And then here we are sitting in the shadows like, what the fuck? What the fuck just happened?
Yeah, well, that goes back to that. We've said it several times on here. There's, it's a Ronald Reagan quote. It says, "There's nothing man can't accomplish as long as he doesn't mind who gets the credit." I know in our past, lives at the last organization, we had we would pitch ideas or cold hard facts and say, hey, look, this is the reality of the situation. This is what needs to be done to rectify it. I mean, crickets, nothing. And then a month later, 2 months later, you see an email, hey, this is the new direction we're going to move. Thank you so much, executive so-and-so for coming up with this idea. Without you, this place would fall apart. And you're going, huh, okay.
Yes.
Well, I guess at least and you almost have to you have to remove your ego out of it and just go, instead of just going, what the, you know what I mean? You have to go, oh, okay, all right, at least we're getting resolution.
Yes.
And it's going to be done the way we think it should be done.
Right.
Yeah, but it sucks sometimes not getting the recognition.
Absolutely. And that was our experience, and it's probably a whole lot of people's experience. And as long as you're having like the logic behind it, like the facts, the filtered through facts from opinions, and you present it in such a way, if it's there and it's actionable, like you can actually do stuff with it. It sucks that you're not the one to actually drive it for action, but as long as it's being made for action, like say for instance, like, hey, we have an unsafe crane that's just running wheels around the freaking flight line. You want it fixed, and you've told people that it needs to get fixed and nothing's happening. But say if the right person tells whoever's in charge, like, hey, this needs to get fixed, it kind of doesn't matter at that point who got the credit, as long as the unsafe condition is removed from the equation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'll attribute for that for a scenario. I might have told you all here before, but I was working for a program that had this ancient tug, and the throttle cable kept breaking, and it would just keep cutting off the end and splicing it, cutting off the end and splicing it, until eventually the cable was so old and brittle that it just finally broke, and it was so short you couldn't splice it anymore. Like, it was just done. So all you could do is grab on the end with a pair of vice grips and pull it to make it work.
Yep.
And you bring it up to people, and you bring it up to people, and it falls on deaf ears and nothing, because they're not the ones dealing with it. But then guess what? One day the old manager's out there, and you say, hey, we're going to have to tow this plane quite a ways. So instead of you walking the wing, how about you just jump on the tug and drive? And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, sounds good. Thanks. And they jump in the tug, and you're like, where's the throttle? Oh, you see those vice grips? Yeah, those are on long-term checkout to this tug, and that's your throttle. So good luck. And then next thing you know, all of a sudden you're getting replacement cables in, or actually I think they got a whole new replacement tug. So sometimes you got to put those people in those kind of situations, because they hear it, but then they don't do anything because it doesn't directly affect them. Well, now it directly affects them. Right,
exactly. And there's this one part of the theory of knowledge that really stuck out to me, and I'll share this with you. It goes, best practices without the understanding of the theories behind it is just, it's going to lead to catastrophe for an organization. Jesus fucking Christ. Like, that's like the most profound thing I've ever heard in my life, because how many times do we hear, this is the best thing ever, or this is the best practices that these top performers do, or whatever the case may be. Like, it just sounds amazing. And when done right, it actually is amazing. But if you don't understand the idea behind it, if you don't understand the how-tos about it, or what made it what it is, and you try it for yourself, you're next thing you know, you're running into this proverbial wall. If you can't understand what's going on, it doesn't work for you. It doesn't work with what you're trying to do. It doesn't integrate right, or whatever the case may be. It just stonewalls you every single time. And again, MVP and I have seen this happen on so many occasions, where we see people try to implement best practices, air quotes, best practices, and it just doesn't work out. And they just forehead or palm to forehead, like, why is this not working? Well, it's because you guys don't understand what you're doing.
Right.
Like, how are you supposed to make something work if you don't know how to do it? Like, I can put my 5-year-old in a car and I can tell him, like, oh, here's the steering wheel, here's the gas pedal, here's the brake pedal. He's not going to understand what the hell to do because he's never been in a fucking car before.
Well, right. And that goes so when you see that happen, then you go, well, how did you come to this conclusion then? Like, if you don't know what you're doing, how did you get to this? This is what we're going to do to fix it. Oh, well, that's what so and so over there said they would do. Okay, did they explain how to do this? No, they just said that's what they would do, and they're higher in the chain than us. So we said, okay, sounds good. Nobody will question them. I was like, well, did they explain to you how to go about this? No. Well, see, there you go. Like, I can't tell Six, like, this is what I would do and not explain anything. And then Six is going to go, I 100% understand, you know?
Yep.
I mean, that's just back to communication, and it's nothing really terrible, but you know, you got to ask questions or you got to explain it properly.
Yes, absolutely. And that goes into like misinterpretation and misunderstanding.
It leads right into this next part.
Yeah, misinterpretation and misunderstanding. Yeah. And because again, like if you don't explain it or you don't ask questions, that turns into misunderstanding. Like he's like, "Oh, this is how I do it." Like, okay, awesome. Sounds easy enough, right? And you plug the 3-prong into the 4-prong outlet, you know?
Right.
It's not going to work, but you said plug it into the wall. Like, yeah, obviously, but not the one where you have to force it to fit, or it should be common sense that you don't flip the switch that has a lock on it or a big red tag hanging off from it. And then likewise with misinterpretation, like, people misinterpret things at all sorts of levels, right? Like, say, like us at the ground mechanic level, we explain certain things, and then people three levels above us, they don't understand, or they misinterpret it, thinking we're being a bunch of assholes. Like, oh, you don't want us to fly, you just want your days off. Like, no, I don't want to fly because this will crash or this will have problems, and it's just going to turn into more work for everybody. But again,
I don't want to fly because we have a hairline crack in the spar, and I need NDI to tell me the severity of that crack. Is it, you know, into the metal, or is it paint? I don't know yet. I need that determination to help make a decision. But until then, I don't feel comfortable putting somebody in this thing and sending them thousands of feet into the air.
Yeah. Exactly. And likewise, say like from the management level or the senior level, when we flow down information or processes, right? It may be misinterpreted as, oh, I just don't give a fuck about your livelihood. Like, no, I actually do care. And me being on the floor and me taking your complaints and your voices and implementing into a process, it's gonna suck when I first put it into effect, because, you know, we got to take things out, we got to address some gaps. There's going to be growing pains. There's going to be a lot of, well, this isn't what I'm accustomed to kind of thing. The gears are going to grind before you start going in the other direction. But if you just follow through with it, it's going to eventually pick up pace, and it'll be as if nothing bad ever happened. But it's that initial flow down that gets misinterpreted. Like, we just think like, oh, they're just being a bunch of dicks to us, or they just don't care about what we do or how we do it. Say, yes, we do. We understand. That's just part of the game, or that's just part of the process, or changing gears. It's gonna grind for a few steps or two before it catches up in the direction you need it to go. But it happens. But being able to bridge those gaps between misunderstanding and misinterpretation from all levels, that's the key in all of it. And again, it flows down to communication, as MVP has said earlier. Like, if we're able to communicate these things before it happens and as we're doing it, and our thought process and theories behind it, then we can at least expect when those gears are going to start grinding, so we can say, okay, this is going to be abrasive, but it's temporary, instead of just reacting to it like, oh, this sucks, this is fucking terrible, and this is bullshit, and then just thinking that there's no end, and when the end already happened, but you're still stuck in that mindset of remembering of when those gears started hitting, if that makes any sort of sense to anybody.
Right.
Man, this is giving me so many flashbacks right now. Like, because a lot of this stuff talks hand in hand with the stuff that we've experienced, and a lot of the stuff that we currently deal with now. And especially in terms of preventative action, risk mitigation, checking for effectiveness, verifying for effectiveness, and then adjusting as we need to. Right. And then just explaining variation. Like, a lot of people think see variation or deviation or deviating from the optimal performance is bad, but sometimes
Yeah,
it
and
just
you can
happens.
also, back into the misinterpretation and misunderstanding. You could find a flaw and you address them and say, you know, hey, we found this. Well, how did you not know that this was, management comes out? How did you not know that this was an issue? Well, because I don't have insight to that. Nobody's sending out a mass email telling us all the inner workings of this place. Well, I told your direct, supervisor. Well, they haven't said anything to me, so I can only know what I know.
Yeah,
If I don't know there's a problem, then I don't know to fix a problem.
absolutely.
That kind of stuff too.
Yeah, or if they're telling me it the wrong way, then misinterpretation creates more misinterpretation and misunderstanding, and then we're just like in this endless cycle of like it's like the telephone game in school, right? Like it starts off with Tom wore a red shirt and a green hat, and then you go down the line by the time it hits the 25th student, and next thing you know, they're talking about a fucking duck that quacks green or some shit like that. Mm-hmm. Like, where the fuck did the duck come from?
Right.
And then next thing, like, how did we get here? And then you start tracing it back to the original source, and like, this was nothing like what we wrote down before or what we did. How the hell did we get here?
Yeah, how do we get to this conclusion?
Right. And then so understanding knowledge itself and how to handle people and the cycle and understanding the theories that drive things, that's the idea.
And know that it's continual and cyclical. Just because you go through this going to the PDSA, just because you go through that one time doesn't mean that's it. Hey, problem resolved. We're never going to have to see this again. Nope. That's where the variant side ties in. You're just continually looking to improve, continually. Just because you resolve one time doesn't mean like you wash your hands of it. It's unless you know the program's going to collapse in 30 days, in which case, why did you invest some time into fixing this anyways when it would just fix itself by no longer existing? But
right.
But it's continually improving. You have to just keep working at it. Hey, okay, we got this fix off the top, but we got to be mindful of what's going on and how things are changing, and working those changes as they come. And that's tough to do. Don't get me wrong. Like, everybody gets stuck in their day-to-day grind. I'm guilty of it myself, right? You get stuck in that day-to-day grind and all the little fires that kick off and continual schedule changes, and you're staying flexible to that, and so some things get put on the back burner. Understandable. Happens in any organization, in any company, in any industry. Absolutely. It is what it is.
Absolutely.
But all you can do is do your best.
Yes. and sometimes the continuous improvement, because every time we think, oh, continuous improvement, like how you can only get better at something so much with a current system and process. Sometimes the continuous improvement is revamping or designing a new process or system. That happens too. And then, like what MVP said earlier, like sometimes the best thing to do is just let that program die or let that system die, because it's just not effective. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And what was that Simpsons episode with Ralphie? Stop! It's already dead.
Yeah.
You can't kill it anymore. It's already dead.
Yeah. And like you can only breathe life into a dead horse so much, or polish shit so much. So sometimes the continuous improvement is making a whole new process or system or routine and then going from there. But you can only do that based on previous performance or previous history. And the only way to really do that is to understand the theory of what drives all of it. Like, what are we trying to do? What's our hope for doing? What do we want done? And what's our optimal result? What do we want? And if you can't answer any of those, then you're just shooting in the dark. You're just continuously improving nothing. You're finding new ways to invent nothing.
That's right. So therefore, you're contributing nothing.
Right. If you can give you less than nothing, we would. But for that, you get nothing.
Since we can't, you get nothing. I miss that guy.
Man, I miss that saying. That's so good, awesome. It used to cut me so hard, but now it's just funny. Oh man, I love it. And again, this is like this. We kind of dove a little into our current situations or our current jobs right now, especially with quality assurance. But again, like we said in the beginning, like this applies to a process. This applies to any industry. This applies to any aspect of your life. Because if you can't explain what you do as a process or a step by step, then do you really know what you're doing? Question mark. You know, that sounds very manufacturer-esque, but it's pretty spot on. You know, like day in, day out, your life begins at a certain step, or you do things at a certain step, and from one step leads to another. Process comes in, and you do certain things, and you get a result, whatever that result is. So, any other final thoughts for this episode, MVP?
No, nothing really from my end. Just stay open-minded and stay vigilant to your area of operation and its ever-changing needs.
Absolutely. That's a very good one. And again, I'm going to tie in that
and don't get stuck in the echo chamber.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly it. Like, don't ignore evidence that's contrary to what you believe in. You know, if
it's evidence nonetheless.
Yeah, if it's objective evidence, it is what it is, and you get and roll with it as you need to, adjust where you need to, and move on.
Yeah, don't be this individual. We have someone in management where I currently work where we called out and said, "Hey, you didn't do this," and the process says you will. Well, I don't like what the process says. I don't care. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that was the response that we got. But I was like, well, it is what it is. And if you want it to change, you have to go and pull the process out and change it. Good luck with that, though.
Right. Yeah. Like you can't redefine things so it fits into your narrative. Like you have to take it for what it is, and then adjust as you need to.
Yeah.
If the whole system needs to get revamped, by all means, do it. But you can't redefine things just to have it fit in your narrative or fit in your system of beliefs.
Yeah.
Like jab, hook.
Yeah. It's crazy, man. But yeah, that's all from my end.
And yeah, that kind of ties hand in hand with what I said. But what do you guys think? Let us know what you guys think about it. What sort of stuff the PDSA cycle or the prevention plan means to you. How would you apply stuff like this? If you have any examples of anything we've said with confirmation bias and stuff like that, let us know in our social medias, in our various ones, or you can send us an email at our website at cancelformaintenance.com. Whichever is easiest for you and whichever is most effective. The absolute best would be to join Patreon and get on our Discord. We're chatting it up in there like daily, like all the time. Sometimes we do lives in there, and then any further projects we got for the podcast or for any other venture that we're trying to go with, it's all going to be on our Discord. So that'd be the 100% best way to interact with us. And on that note, thanks again, everybody, and we'll see you again next time.
Bye, everyone.
We would like to take this time to thank our patrons for supporting our show and allowing us to make episodes, maintain our gear, and create merch for all of our listeners, with special thanks to Erica Lamont, Chris Hawkins, Dan Schubert, Ryan Frushauer, Kyle Keir, Caleb Stockhill, Jenny Dignan, and Jennifer Brofer. Thank you all so much for your support and patronage. If you like our show, please support us on Patreon. You'll receive awesome perks such as access to our private Discord, discounts on and early access to merch, first glimpse of our comics and other projects, and so much more. Visit our shop at cancelformaintenance.com and grab some swag to show off both your support for us and your prowess as an aircraft technician. If you have suggestions for the show or have a guest recommendation to be on the show, send us a line on our contact us section at our website, and we will do what we can to get your ideas and or your recommendations on the show. You can also follow us on social media, such as on Facebook at Cancel for Maintenance, Instagram at Canx, that's CANX for Maintenance Podcast, Twitter at CXMX Podcast, and now you can catch us on Tapas, where you can view our latest comics. Check out our affiliate, rockwelltime.com, for watches and eyewear that support both your sporty and classy lifestyles. Use the code CX4MX, that's the number 4MX, to save 10% off your total purchase. Thank you all again for your listenership and support, and we will see you all next time.